You know, in today's cloud world, things are always changing, right? A new server pops up here, a permission gets tweaked over there, but how in the world do you keep track of it all? How do you know if that tiny little change from yesterday is what's causing a massive outage today? That's exactly why you need a single source of truth. And today, we're going to break down the AWS service built for that very purpose, AWS Config.
Look, if you've ever been on the hook for a cloud environment, these questions probably keep you up at night. An application breaks, something weird is happening, and suddenly you're playing detective, digging through endless logs. Who changed that security group? Wait, are we even compliant anymore? These aren't just little annoyances. They are genuine blind spots that can lead to downtime, huge security risks, and some pretty serious compliance headaches.
And that, right there, is the core problem AWS Config was designed to solve. It's all about taming the natural chaos of a dynamic cloud. So let's take a look at what that chaos really means, and more importantly, how we get past it.
I mean, just look at the difference here. It's night and day, right? On one side, you've got the before picture, things slowly drifting out of sync, security blind spots you could drive a truck through, and that painful, slow process of trying to figure out what went wrong. But on the other side, that's the after, a consistent, totally visible environment with a detailed audit trail for everything. This isn't just about tidying up. It's about being able to do rapid impact analysis when things inevitably go sideways. This is the order config brings to the chaos.
All right, so we've set the stage, we know the chaos. So what's the hero of our story? What exactly is AWS Config?
Okay, at its absolute core, AWS Config is your cloud's official record keeper. It's constantly watching and recording the state of all your AWS resources. And then it lets you automatically check if they line up with the way you want them to be. The real key here, though, is history. It's not just about what your setup looks like right now, it's about what it looked like a minute ago, an hour ago, or even a month ago.
So, how does this all happen under the hood? It's actually pretty simple. I like to think of it like a CCTV system, but for your infrastructure. The second a change happens, let's say a new EC2 instance gets launched, the configuration recorder sees it. It immediately creates something called a configuration item, which is basically just a super detailed snapshot of that resource at that exact moment. Then, that snapshot gets saved, building this perfect chronological history over time.
And believe me, that level of detail is everything. A configuration snapshot isn't just the resource's name and ID. No, it captures its relationships to other resources, all of its tags, everything. Why does that matter so much? Because it gives you context. You don't just see that a security rule changed, you see exactly which servers and which databases were instantly affected by that one little change. Okay, so you've got this perfect, beautiful historical record. Awesome. But so what? What do you actually do with all that data? How do you turn all that information into real, concrete action? Well, it really comes down to 4 massive use cases. First up, resource administration. You get a live, searchable inventory of every single thing you own. Second, auditing and compliance. You can prove to an auditor without a doubt what your setup looked like on any given day. Third, troubleshooting. You can finally pinpoint the one change that broke everything. And fourth, security analysis. You can trace a vulnerability all the way back to its source. Let's dig into a couple of these.
Let's dive into security for a second, because this is huge. Imagine you need to know if a certain user had the power to mess with your private network, your VPC, say 3 months ago. Instead of just guessing, you can use AWS Config to pull up the exact IAM policy that was attached to that user on that specific day. It's literally like a time machine for your security posture.
And for troubleshooting, oh, this is a total game changer. The app goes down, everyone's panicking. Instead of guessing, you can just pull up its configuration history, compare it to the last time it was working, and bam, you instantly see what changed. This turns what used to be hours of stressful guesswork into just a few minutes of targeted analysis.
Okay, everything we've talked about so far has been kind of passive, right? Just watching and recording. But this is where AWS Config gets really interesting, when it goes from being a historian to being a security guard.
This is where AWS Config Rules come into play. A rule is basically you telling AWS, this is how I want things to be. This is my gold standard. For example, you could have a rule that says all of our S3 buckets must have logging turned on, or that all of our EBS volumes must be encrypted, no exceptions. And you've got 2 main ways to do this. You've got managed rules. Think of these as the prepackaged best practice rules straight from AWS. They're great for common stuff. But then, for your own unique company policies, you have custom rules. This is where you get to be the chef, using AWS Lambda to write your own logic. It gives you total flexibility.
And we're not just talking about a handful of rules here. You can have up to 1,000 of these rules running in each region of your account. I mean, think about that. That's an incredible amount of fine-grained control over your entire environment.
But here's the kicker, and this is my favorite part. Config doesn't just point out your problems. It can actually fix them for you. When a rule finds something that's non-compliant, you can trigger a remediation action. That could just be an alert to an engineer, sure. Or you can set up auto-remediation to have the system fix common problems immediately and automatically, with zero human touch.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the recording, the history, the rules, the auto-remediation, you can really see why we call AWS Config your cloud's official record. And the scope here is just massive. I mean, this slide barely scratches the surface. AWS Config supports hundreds of different resource types across dozens of services. We're talking core compute, storage, serverless functions, networking. It gives you that true holistic view of everything.
And get this? This is a really cool part that a lot of people don't know. It's not even limited to just AWS stuff. You can actually use AWS Config to record changes for third-party resources too. Things like GitHub repos or Datadog monitors, all tracked right alongside your native AWS resources. You know, there's a line in the official docs that just nails it perfectly. It says you can get a configuration snapshot, which is a complete picture of every single recorded resource and its configuration. That's it. It is the definitive, authoritative source of truth for your cloud.
So let me just leave you with this thought. AWS Config basically gives your entire cloud infrastructure a perfect, searchable memory. So the real question isn't what it can do, but with that kind of power, what will you ask it? What problems will you solve? Thanks for tuning in.